In this lesson, we're going to see how to use for loops to process the data in a text file. So the first thing we're going to do is open up a new program. We'll call this forfile.py. And let's start off by refreshing our memory on how we process files using a while loop from the last chapter. So the first thing we do is open a file. So there's the statement to open the file. And then we read a line from the file. Then we say while there is data to read, print it, and then read another line. So let's save this program, go back to our prompt, and run it real quick. Notice that when we print the line, it also prints a line feed, because remember when we wrote the data to the file, we had to write the line feed. And the print command adds its own line feed automatically. Before I show you how to process data with a for loop, let me show you another little trick you can use. In the print command, we can suppress the line feed automatically generated by the print function by adding this argument end equals open, close, single quote, or empty string. Now let's save it. Let's run that program again. And so you see it suppressed the line feed that automatically is added in the print function. Okay, so now that we've seen how to do that, let's now see how to process this file using a for loop. It's quite a bit simpler. I'm going to comment out the previous lines. So what we're going to do is we're going to say for line in open print line end equals. So remember that the for loop works on a sequence of data, and a file is nothing more than a sequence of data, just like a list or a tuple or any of the other data structures that we've looked at. So let's save the file. We'll come back and look at it again once we've run it. Clear the screen and then run our code. And so you see we get the same result, but in quite a few less lines. It took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines to run the first program using a while loop, and in a for loop it only takes 2 lines and quite a bit less processing power. Now let's look at another example using the grades file that we wrote in the last chapter. Just to remind you what the file looks like, I'll type it out for you real quick. So we have 5 grades, and we're going to compute the average of those grades using a for loop. So come back to our program. So we need to say sum equals 0, count equals 0, and then we'll say for grade in open grades.text. Sum equals sum plus int grade. Remember that we have to convert grade from string to integer, so we'll do that there. Count is equal to count plus 1. And then we can say average is equal to sum divided by count, and then print the average. And remember we have to convert average to string in the print function. We might also print the grades just so that we can have a record of the grades as we go through the loop. All right, so there's our code. Let's save the file. Go back to our command prompt window. Clear the screen. And there's our program. So to review, a for loop can be used to process a text file in a much shorter manner than using a while loop, as evidenced by the examples that I've shown you here. So we've seen 2 examples where we've shown that we can eliminate at least 3 or 4 lines of code by using a for loop to process a text file rather than a while loop. In most cases, especially again when you're trying to process all of the data in the file, the preferred way to process the file is using the for loop and not using the while loop, as we discussed earlier. So that wraps up this lesson on processing files with for loops, and we're ready to move on to the first exercise for the chapter.